Plenty of pizza back there. If you get hungry in the middle of the program, just everybody will know, though. Everybody will know you're going back for seconds. but please help yourself. There's plenty of pizza back there. Just wanted to make sure that everyone knows where the bathrooms are located, because that's always an important issue as well. As you come in, the entrance here on your right, there's bathrooms. If you go down this exit right here, there's some bathrooms down there as well. Wanted to also make you understand that we're just pleased to see this kind of turnout from parents who truly care about their children and finding out about options for their children. And I'm just thrilled. Didn't know how many people to expect. So just wanted you to know that we're glad you're here, we're proud you're here, and you're going to learn a lot tonight. First line of business is, of course, we want to say a prayer. And Junior Smith, if you would lead us in prayer, we would sure appreciate it.
I brought our medallion with us. We're Pickens County through and through here, and you can see that we stand for God, family, and country. And that's who we are for. We're not political. We don't elect candidates or anything like that, but we do listen to candidates to see what they say. So let's bow in prayer. Our Heavenly Father, we thank you for the opportunity to come here and learn from people who care about children and who have developed ways to teach them in a way that will serve you in the future. Give us the courage and the strength to always watch out for our children and see to it that they grow up in wisdom with God and country. And we pray this prayer in the name of the Father, the Son, and the Holy Spirit, in Jesus Christ's precious name, and in his finished work we pray. Amen.
Amen.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. All right, let's move on, and let me introduce myself first. I'm Jonelle Raines. I'm a Christian. I'm a wife, mother of 4, grandmother of 6, and a retired first grade public school teacher. I taught first grade for 29 years in North Carolina. And sadly, for the past several years, I have been troubled with what's going on in our public schools. And it's not the teacher's fault. I want everybody to understand that. The teachers' hands are tied. So don't be blaming the teachers. We love our teachers in the public schools, and we're not bashing public school teachers by any stretch of the imagination, because their hands are tied. And just want to make sure that you understand that. But we do feel like parents need to know what their options are if they're not pleased with the direction of the education that their child is getting. This is going to be a first seminar in a series that Conservatives of the Upstate is going to have for parents to come in and see the different school options that you can have. Now, quite frankly, homeschool option is growing by leaps and bounds. According to educationnews.org, since 1999, there has been a 75% increase in the number of children that are being homeschooled. And the number of homeschooled children is growing 7 times faster than the children that are enrolling in public schools. We have very qualified speakers tonight who will inspire you to see how relatively easy it's going to be for you to consider homeschooling as an option for your child. You will see how the homeschool option truly frees you as a parent from worrying about your child being bullied or your child being taught beliefs and values that you don't agree with. And after all, who knows your child the best? You do. Not some bureaucrat sitting up there in Washington, D.C. or Columbia, South Carolina. In the future, Conservatives of the Upstate will offer another free seminar on charter and private school options as well. And you will learn how you can influence our legislators to get on board with backpack funding, which you can be reimbursed for homeschooling or reimbursed for sending your child to the school of your choice. No parent, let me say this again, no parent should be forced to send their child to a school based merely on district lines. I want to take a moment to thank the group of Conservatives of the Upstate for sponsoring this wonderful free opportunity for parents. A special thank you goes out to Junius and Carol Smith, Steve Haney, Russ Smith, John Schaefer, and Michelle Wiles for being the go-getters in helping to make this event happen. And more importantly, thank you for taking your time to come out and learn about what you possibly can see in the future for a homeschool option for your children. At the end of our speakers' presentations tonight, we're going to have a question and answer period. So those of you that are listening live feed, please have your questions ready as well. You can text your question when we get to the question and answer period to this telephone number, 864-230-0084. Let me say that again for those of you that are listening live on the internet, 864-230-0084. Now let me get on to introduce our speakers for tonight and give you a little brief bio on each of them. Gail Ferrier began homeschooling her first son with her husband Greg in North Carolina before moving here to South Carolina. Their first son was homeschooled until 8th grade, and then he went on to graduate from Liberty High School. The rest of their four children have been homeschooled fully, with their youngest one finishing up in 2005. Gail and her husband helped to organize Easley Home Educators in 1991, and Gail served as president of that support group until her retirement in 2005. She was on the South Carolina Home Educators Association board in the early 90s and came back on the board in 2001. She has served continuously on the board, first as treasurer, then as legislative researcher, and currently as president. The Lord took her husband Greg home in 2010, but Gail remains in the homeschool arena on the state level. She is enjoying her 11 grandchildren, though she doesn't see as much of them as she would like, since they all live out of state. And I fully understand that as mine all live out of state as well. Christy Brooks is here tonight representing Christian Home Educators of Easley, also known as CHI. She is a graduate of Bob Jones University with a degree in journalism and continues using her writing skills by teaching writing classes for the co-op group CHI. She maintains the group's website and produces their yearbook. She also occasionally does freelance writing and copy editing. She and her husband Remington have 3 children, all of whom have been homeschooled for the last 5 years. Their family is involved in leadership at the Easley campus of Summit Church, as well as Boy Scout Troop 95 in Powdersville. Presently, Christy serves on the leadership team of Christian Home Educators of Easley, which involves managing weekly classes and activities for 60 co-op families. Michelle Wiles is the mother of 6, all of whom have been homeschooled. She has been a homeschooling mom for over 21 years, and 3 of her children have graduated successfully and are gainfully employed. She is also a part-time sales manager for a biofuels company. She is active in local, state, and national politics. She is proud to be a Christian and is an avid supporter of helping people learn more about how to homeschool and take back control of how and what their children learn. After our speakers finish their presentations tonight, I got to skip back. We have an extra surprise speaker tonight as well. And I wrote his name down, Thomas Beach. He's the district executive for Upstate Boy Scouts. He wants to speak to you for just a brief amount of time too as well. And after our speakers finish tonight, like I said, we'll have a question and answer period. If time runs out and your question doesn't get answered, there are cards back there at the table that you can write your question down and put your email address, and we'll make sure that our speakers answer your question and send you an email to answer your question. Also, if you're interested in being on the South Carolina Home Educators email list, there's a separate sign-in sheet. Make sure that you sign that. So now it's time to sit back, be a sponge, soak up all this great information that these speakers are going to impart on you tonight. Please welcome our first speaker, Gail Ferrier.
Now, there is not a clock within view. So I told, see, I can't see it because the thing is there. So I told Christy when I'm done, she can just stand up and start coming up here, and I'll know that I can quit at that point. I appreciate the opportunity to come before you tonight. We have been involved in the homeschooling journey for the last 30 years, and I hate to think that it's been that long because it really doesn't feel like we've done that for that long. My husband and I began homeschooling in South Carolina in 1986. At that point, there was no homeschool law in South Carolina, and every school district did what was right in its own eyes. For us, that involved a 36-page application form that included 3 recommendations from educators who knew us and thought we could homeschool our children, in spite of the fact that I had my degree in elementary education and my husband had his own bachelor's degree. It involved a home visit. It involved sending in my lesson plans for every class that I taught to every one of my children every week to the school district. So when you have a one-page application that you need to turn in to whoever you're turning it into, been there, done that, and you've got it easy. The form at that time was what they called substantial equivalent, which essentially meant that we needed to prove we could provide to our children an education that was substantially equivalent to what they would have been getting in public school. And they did tell us that if they chose not to approve our homeschool curriculum, and we chose to do it anyway, that they would take our children from us and charge us with educational neglect. So we have come a long ways in the homeschooling field in South Carolina. Back in the early 80s, there were enough homeschooling families that were beginning to understand what the curriculum was requiring of them. They began to get together and form support groups. One of those support groups was in Goose Creek, and that group eventually became what is the state organization today. This is the group of which I am president. It is the South Carolina Home Educators Association. South Carolina Home Educators Association was formed for 2 primary reasons. One was to keep homeschoolers abreast of what was happening legislatively. And those were in the days before Facebook and Twitter and Instagrams and when telephones were attached to the wall. You did not carry them in your back pocket. Today, we still maintain that as one of our 2 primary purposes. We are the legislative watchdog of the state. That's one of my responsibilities on the board. I personally read every piece of legislation that is introduced in Columbia when the legislature is in session to find out what may be coming down the pike for us as homeschoolers. The other reason that SCIA was formed was to support and encourage homeschoolers, and we still do that across the state. So the question is, where did we get to where we are? Back around 1987, there were families who said, we need to have some form of law so we know what we are required to do, because if you move from one school district to another, it will be totally different as to what's required of you. The legislators were not real happy with that idea. Department of Education was not real happy with that idea. National Association of Educators was not real happy with that idea. And so there was a lengthy battle that ensued. We had families who were called into court. We had other families who spent hours and hours with legislators in committee meetings and behind closed doors. We had phone chains where you actually called people who were on your chain. But in the end, at the end of the legislative session in 1988, we have what is today what we call Option 1. Option 1 allowed us to homeschool through the school district. It required first that the parent or guardian be the primary teacher. It required that that parent have a minimum of a GED, and even that we had to fight for. It required that we teach 180 days, that we teach 4.5 hours a day, that we cover the core curriculum, which included math, science, social studies, language arts, reading and writing, or on the high school level, journalism and composition. It required that we keep a plan book so we knew exactly what we were covering each day with each of our subjects. Required that we keep a progress report, which essentially was a report card that we needed to turn into the school district twice a year. And it also required that we go into the school system in the spring to take the standardized testing that all the public school kids got. So that was the first option. That option is still in force today. And we do have a few families who are actually homeschooling under that law. But then there were families who said, you know what, we really don't want to be accountable to the school board. We would really like to do this on our own. And so there were families who got together and began to form their own organization based on the private school laws. Well, it didn't take long for them to wind up in court. And at one point in time, South Carolina had more homeschooling families in court than the other 49 states combined. But out of all of that, in 1992, we got what is the second option for homeschooling in South Carolina. It is the South Carolina Association of Independent Homeschools, or SCAIS. SCAIS is the only homeschooling organization that is legal by law in the nation. It has its own bill, has still the same basic requirements as first option. It still needs to be the parent or legal guardian who's the primary teacher. They need to do 180 days. They need to have a minimum of a GED. They need to teach the core curriculum, and they need to have a plan book and have progress reports. The difference was these were homeschoolers who were helping homeschoolers. So there was a camaraderie that was there, different from homeschooling families who are trying to go through the school district where there was antagonism very often. SCAIS realized that because of the fight that they had had to get to this position, that they really needed to maintain a very high standard for their students. So SCAIS still requires a lot more of their students than other options do. But it's because of where they came from and how they got there. Then there were families who said, you know what, we really don't want to go through the school district, but we really don't like all the rules and regulations that SCAIS is putting on us. So we're going to try and do one more option. And option 3 came into being in 1996. Today, probably 95 or 96% of our families homeschool under the third option. These are accountability groups. The state requires that the accountability group have a minimum of 50 members. There are, on the Department of Education website, there are currently 37 third option groups. They are still required for the parent or legal guardian to be the primary teacher. It still requires a minimum of a GED, still requires teaching the core curriculum, still requires the 180 days, and the association needs to report to the local school district how many students they have at what grade levels. They do not report names and addresses. They only report the number of students in each grade level in that district. So that was how, by 1996, we came up with 3 different options for homeschooling. Third option is the most popular one at this point. And if you go to our website, which is skia.net, and there are flyers on the back table, you are more than welcome to help yourself to them. But www.schea.net. And we will list for you all of the third option groups that are on the Department of Education with links to their website, because every third option group is a little bit different. They all require what the law requires. For some of them, that's all they require, and they essentially say, show us that you've got at least a GED, promise that you're going to do what the law requires, and we'll see you next spring. For others, there's a lot more accountability. So they want to see your curriculum, they want to know what you're teaching, but on the other hand, they also provide a lot more for you. So there are some groups who will do, for instance, on the high school level, they will do ranking so that your students can get scholarships. There are some who will do graduations. There are a lot of different things that they do, so it's really important if you go with the third option group that you check out each one of the third options, that you know what they require of you, but then you also know what you can expect from them. So third options vary greatly. Once we got those third options, then where do we go from there? Well, there are 5 things that you need to do if you're going to choose to homeschool. The first thing is you need to make the decision to homeschool. And a lot of times that's a very difficult decision to make. The night that we finally said, yes, this is what we're going to do, I said to my husband, do you know what I'm doing? Do you know what I'm doing? If our kids fail, it's my fault. I can't blame it on a school or a curriculum or anything else. It's me. And he said, I'm not worried. You'll do fine. And he turned over and went to sleep. And I just went, Lord, you need to let me know that we are doing the right thing, because this scares the daylights out of me. And if you had told me that I would homeschool for 20 years, I would have told you to wash your mouth out with battery acid. There was no way in the world I was going to homeschool for the next 20 years. So we strongly recommend, if you think this is what you want to do, that you make the commitment for 1 year. Do not commit your whole family for the next 20 or 30 years, however old your kids are and however long you're going to be doing it. But commit to 1 year. Don't get started in September and by November say, no, can't do this, and put your kids back in school. Make sure that you are committed to this. And one of the things we strongly recommend is that you write down the reasons why you are homeschooling. We had one family who was really excited. They had 2 boys. They were excited. They were going to homeschool. I talked to him one day, and he said, man, things are going really well. Everything, the boys love it. We're doing really great. I said, Kim, how long have you been homeschooling? He said, this is the 3rd day. I said, let me tell you, at some point within the next couple of days, your wife is going to hit a wall. And I saw him about a week later, and he said, I went home that night, and she had hit the wall. It was 4:30 in the afternoon. They hadn't gotten half of the work done. The boys didn't know a thing. Everything had gone wrong. And she was ready to say, can't do this anymore. And Kim said, no, I just talked to Gail, and she said this was going to happen. So hang in there. Get up tomorrow morning and do it again. And sometimes that's what we need, is just the commitment to say, yes, I am going to do this. Let me pull out my reasons for why am I homeschooling, and then go with it and make the commitment and stick with it for 1 school year. Then at the end of the year, then look at where you are, what you have done, and are you ready to commit to this again? I am obviously a very firm believer in homeschooling, but I also do not believe that every child needs to be homeschooled all the way through in every family. There are differences, there are circumstances, there are things that happen, and you don't need to feel like you're a failure if you have committed to this for 1 year and you have gone through the year and then you say, you know what, I'm not going to do this. This is just not where I need to be right now. It's okay. It's okay. God has other things for you and for your family. But at least get through the first year. And you may be surprised at how well things go after that first year. You will find that your kids, for the most part, are saying, yeah, you know what? This is not a bad deal after all. I've got a lot more free time. I can get through what I need to get through. And the beauty of homeschooling is that you take your child at his or her own pace. You do not have to push through and get everything done. Or if they already know it, you don't have to go over and over and over and over the same thing, which is what they have to do in a traditional classroom setting. So, number one, make sure you're going to do it. Number two, become legal. And that's where you need to sign up with one of the 3 options so that you are legal. Because yes, they will come. You may have a neighbor who is not at all excited about your family or about homeschooling or about whatever else. They will call DSS, and DSS will come knock on your door. So get legal. That's very important. Now, you are still required to do 180 days. But if you choose to pull your child out in the middle of a school year, which you are allowed to do, the days that he has already been in school count towards your 180 days. But you are only allowed 10 days grace period. And so if you pull your child out the middle of October and don't get around to getting legal until after Christmas, you stand a very good chance of somebody saying, how come your kids are not in school? And what's happening in this family? And so we strongly recommend get legal even before you pull your kids, and definitely get legal before school starts in September. And then buy your curriculum. And I think Michelle is going to touch on this. There are literally hundreds of options for curriculum. When we started homeschooling, there were about 4 full curriculum and maybe half a dozen or so supplements. Today, hundreds of curriculum and hundreds of supplements where you can pick and choose. And so it's very important that you know your child. And don't be afraid to buy a curriculum or to go with a certain thing and then get halfway through and say, you know what, this is just not working. This is absolutely not working. And switch curriculums. And that's okay. You're allowed to do that. But get your curriculum. And then we strongly recommend that you sign up with a support group. And a support group is totally different from accountability. And Christy will deal with support groups and other options for how to get somebody to help you through this process. Because it is a process, it is a journey, it is not easy, but it can be done. And I'm here to tell you 20 years, and I still have my hair, and this is my natural color. Okay, so it is possible. So those are the things that we recommend that you do. But the 5th thing is the most important one. Just do it. There are families who just say, I don't know, I don't think I can, I would really love to, but I don't know, I don't think I can. And that's where, once you have made the commitment and you've gotten your curriculum, then get up the first day and do it. And homeschooling does require a commitment. And I'm very sad to see so many of the younger generation who are so addicted to their iPads and smartphones and whatever else that they wind up somewhere around 3 or 4 o'clock in the afternoon. Oh, you know what? I haven't had breakfast. I haven't fed my kids. I haven't done the dishes. And if that's your philosophy and your lifestyle, you're not going to make it homeschooling, because homeschooling does require a commitment. It requires time. It requires effort. It requires that you actually get involved with your student. And switching hats from being a mother to being a teacher is not always easy. But that's what's required of you if you're going to homeschool. So I'm going to go for it, Christy. Tell them everything they need to know.
That was a wonderful beginning, and I heard things that I had never heard before, even though I've been in the trenches, so to speak, for 5 years. Things change in the homeschool world year to year. Gail was talking about the differences in curriculum choices then and now. There were no seminars for me to go to 5 years ago to hear such good, succinct information all in one place. So I'm happy for you that you are here tonight and making time for this. Compared to the other 2 ladies, I guess I'm a newbie because, like I said, I've only been at it for 5 years, so I still remember how you probably are feeling right this very minute. extremely overwhelmed, extremely unsure of myself, extremely not really knowing if this was the right thing to do, and as a Christian, asking God daily, are you sure this is the plan? Because I think there's got to be a better plan than me being the teacher every day. But 5 years later, we're all alive, we're all functioning, and my 3 little kiddos are doing well in their own ways. So what I'm here to talk to you about today is something that I have a little bit of knowledge on firsthand, and that is homeschool co-ops, support groups. They're called many different things. My particular co-op is Christian Home Educators of Easley, which John L. referred to in the introduction. And in a moment, when I get to this part, I will explain the differences in some of the groups that you can find out there, because just like all of the curriculum choices, there are tons of choices for groups and friends and social activities and all those sorts of things. So I will get to that in just a minute. Every year in our group, well, let me back up. Every year since I've been on the leader team, which has only been 2 years, we do an end-of-year survey of our members just to get feedback from them and make sure we're all on the right track and what can we do better and those kind of things. And every year, the number one reason that wins out as why they are a part of such a group as ours is for the social time, the friendships, for moms and children. It's for both sides of that equation. Other choices on the survey include, the classes that are offered at the field trips and the fun stuff, but number one every time is the we need to be around people aspect. So I'm just going to go through a few things, a few benefits that your children will have by being part of such a group, and then I will throw out some things that you as the parent, I may refer to the mom more than the dad just because moms are usually the ones that are involved, but that the parent may also benefit from by being involved in such a group. In a group, and I don't just mean ours, I just mean any type of homeschooling, you're coming together with the same purpose and one-mindedness of homeschooling. Your children will have the opportunity to learn how to navigate relationships, friendship building, teamwork, how to sit still in a classroom and listen, maybe if it's that type of group that offers classes. That is actually a valuable thing to learn, because in their lifetime they may have to sit still and listen sometimes. So it's good practice for those kinds of practical things. There's opportunities for conflict revolution. Revolution, yes. Sometimes it's a revolution. Sometimes there is resolution. So conflict resolution is another opportunity that you may not even associate, because we're all homeschoolers, we're all on the same page, right? I use this curriculum and I use that curriculum and I do things this way and you do things that way, and all of that is fine. That's perfectly fine. Those differences are just going to come up, and so in a group setting, you and your children will have opportunities to learn how to kind of work through that in a mature and decent kind of way. It's an opportunity to understand that we do have differences and that those differences are okay, and to learn to love and value other people, even if we don't always agree on every single point. It's also an opportunity for them to have exposure to things, to subjects or classes or experiences that you just can't always do at home. For instance, my first child, my oldest, is all about the science, and I am not all about the science. I would much rather read or spell or punctuate. Those kind of things are my thing. That comes easy to me. He wants to build and blow up and create and all this crazy stuff that I just look at him like, where on earth did you come from? Co-op offers opportunities for that. He is actually going to be, he's 13, going into the 8th grade. He's actually going to be having a little electronics club when we start back in the fall, teaching simple circuitry on breadboards, and if you don't know what a breadboard is, well, just ask the Google, because that's what I had to do to know what he was talking about. So that's just not something he could do at home with just me and the sisters necessarily. So that's kind of a great benefit of getting involved in a group. Being involved in a group offers you opportunities that you wouldn't have access to as a family, which is kind of what I just said. But aside from just subjects of interest, there are field trips and other experiences that maybe just one single family can't go to and be involved in, but if you've got 20 people asking if we can come and do and see, places will open their doors and welcome you in and let you have tours and things like that. So that's kind of a neat thing. Our group in particular, and I know many of the other ones do, we have a field day. We even offered standardized testing. We have holiday parties. I mean, there's just things to do if you're wanting more outside of the home experiences. A group, a co-op, or other group is a great place to find that. As a mom, I'll just focus on the moms or dads if you're the one to be the most involved. This next point has been the one that to me personally has been the most beneficial, aside from what my children are getting out of it. Being in a group reassures you that you are not alone. You're not alone. You're not the only one whose kid is so cantankerous that you have to end up crying in the laundry room while they're writing their spelling words or whatever you left them doing. You're not the only one that happens to. You're not the only one that wants to quit every now and then. You're not the only one that feels like a failure if the grades aren't exactly what you expected them to be, because said child that is extremely smart in the area of science can't spell to save his little life. And so, yeah, we get through science and math, no problem. And then comes language arts, which is mom's passion, not his, and that makes for a fun school day. But it's just opportunities for you to talk to people who are in exactly the same boat as you in one way or another. So it's support. It's shared struggles and shared experiences, and you get to talk about those and realize that maybe I'm doing better than I thought I was, or maybe I can do differently. Maybe I can try what they're doing and do better in a particular area, which is my next point. Belonging to a group opens you up to new ideas for how to do things and to opportunities to discuss curriculum and methods, etc., with others who have more experience. I would love to sit down with these ladies who have decades of experience and just listen to them all day long, because I just feel like there's so much wisdom to be gleaned there. And so belonging to a group puts you in touch with those kind of people, and you can learn from their experiences and glean their wisdom. Belonging to a group gives you the same opportunities that I spoke of at the beginning that your children have. You get opportunities to navigate relationships and resolve conflicts and understand differences and all those things. And we as adults can benefit from those type of situations as well as our children. If you're in a group that offers weekly classes and teaching opportunities, you may have an opportunity to share your passion about something that maybe your own kiddos aren't so happy about. I keep picking on my 13-year-old, but I taught a writing class this past year. Getting him to write something creative at home is a battle and a tooth pulling that I dread every time. But miraculously, in this class setting with peers and the good side of peer pressure, he's writing all kinds of stories and articles and different things that I'm assigning as the classroom teacher that just me at home, I would have to coerce him in ugly ways to get him to do that. So if you have a particular passion or degree or knowledge, being in a co-op or group setting offers you the opportunity to share that with other people's children for sure, but your own also. Which brings me to this point. There are many, many, many different types of groups available in this area, as in Easley Pickens, in Greenville, in the upstate. There's just, the list is almost never ending. So when you came in, I think it's on green paper back there, but I used the wonderful World Wide Web to just put on one sheet all kinds of such groups that may be beneficial to you. So if you think that's something that would be helpful to you, it's back on the table, maybe green or yellow paper, I'm not sure. But I will talk about the differences in the group just very briefly, only because when I was in your shoes 5 years ago, I just thought they were all the same. I didn't know one was this and one was that, and I didn't understand and know those differences. So just to be helpful to you very briefly, I will talk about the differences. In the upstate area, maybe not in Easley Pickens per se, you will have groups that offer core classes, and by that I mean the essential math, science, language, those types of things. That you can go probably in a paid instructor. You're paying somebody 1 or 2 days a week to teach on those days, and then you're teaching the rest of the days at home. Some of them even offer the opportunity to go and drop off on their meeting days. So that is something to think about. I see that popular more with middle high schoolers that are getting into the subjects that some of us are less comfortable or able to teach, and so that is an option that's out there for you. Some of the groups out there may meet for classes on a weekly basis, but they're usually mom taught, and this is the niche that our particular co-op fits into. We have mom taught supplemental classes. None of our classes at co-op necessarily on a Monday are going to take place of or be your main source for what is going to go on at home every week, but they will certainly support what you're teaching, help you in your teaching. Nobody can know too much geography or too much math facts or things like that. So we're trying to do things that come along beside the parent to help you in your schooling, but not necessarily. We're not going to be your curriculum that you use during the week. Several of those kind of groups out there. There are groups in the area that are curriculum based, such as classical conversations. That is an entire curriculum. On their meeting day, you have teachers teaching the curriculum, and then you as the mom or the parent know what to go home and do for the rest of the week. I've talked to people who love that, very involved with that. I'm not knowledgeable enough to really talk about classical conversations, the curriculum, but there are groups out there for that, including 1 or 2 in the Easley area. There are groups that are formed around the Charlotte Mason teaching method, which Michelle is going to elaborate on in a moment, and probably others that I've never heard of and don't know about. So they're curriculum-based groups. Some groups in the area have a fine arts focus. There's a established group in Greenville called Artios. They do have academic classes, but they also have this very thriving and well-programmed fine arts department where I think last year they did Beauty and the Beast. And these are students, your kids being in a production of Beauty and the Beast, and I'm sure plenty of others. Right here in Easley, they're the Fine Arts Center of Easley, and they offer fine arts classes to homeschoolers. And then that is another thing we are able to do at GE. We have been very blessed with one of our members being an actual trained classical ballerina, and out of her passion for ballet, classical ballet, she decided to pull in music and drama classes and things like that. So we actually have a little bit of that also. Other groups exist that are only field trips. There's not a set weekly meeting, just let's get together and go to the zoo or go to a farm, to a radio station, all this kind of stuff. Those are out there. Those are beneficial and good, and you can have relationships and fun and support in those just like you can any of the weekly groups. And still more groups exist. Some groups have more of a high school focus, like the clubs, like Key Club and Drama Club and Yearbook and things like that. So proms. So they kind of offer the high school experiences, if not the classes per se. So all of these types, and probably some that I've never heard of, are out there. They're available for you. Many of them are listed in this section of my handout under upstate area co-ops, and many others can be found online. That's how I found all of my information that I didn't already know in my brain. Just looked online. So I would just encourage you, if you find yourself at a point where you feel like we could leave the house one day a week, we could get out of these four walls and go interact with other human beings. Connect somewhere. There are also groups, of course, such as the Boy and Girl Scouts, the American Heritage Girls, Trail Life, and others, as I said, that I'm probably not aware of. Let me differentiate here and say that support groups and co-ops are not necessarily your third option coverage. I get that question a lot with Chi, is if I sign up with you, am I legal? We got nothing to do with that. So that's not what we're doing in our group. We're not covering you legally. So just be sure that you know some of them are combined. Some of them are a legal accountability group, and they have co-op classes and field trip opportunities and things like that. So just for your sake, make sure you know what particular group you're interested in, what they're offering, and what they will do for you. And then Michelle, I hope she's not going to make this point because I stole it from her, but she can repeat it. Anything can be formed or found. Anything you need. If you go and visit, I don't know, EHE is right down the road. They meet at Rock Springs. If you go and visit EHE and you're just like, it's not really my thing. It's not a good fit. We use that a lot with our group. Just sometimes things aren't a good fit for you and yours. Find other people that think like you and form a group. It's not this great, hard, difficult, I could never do that kind of thing. If I can be in leadership in my group, now I didn't form it. It was in existence and was quite frankly on its last leg when I agreed to be on the leader team. But if I can come in to the group that I did and kind of breathe new life and get things back on track, then you and some other like-minded folks can certainly get together and form a group that meets your needs, that fits your interests, and that kind of stuff, if there's not one already out there. I will just say, in the interest of full disclosure, and I hate to say this, I was saying this to the other ladies, I would love just to say, if you decide to homeschool, you be sure to call me, look me up, and Chi will welcome you with open arms. I would love to say that with all my heart. But we are so slam full because of the increased interest in homeschooling in this area. I have already started having to turn people away. We just don't have space. It's not that we think we're so ultra special that nobody else needs to come in. We're just full. The lunch area is only so big. The classrooms are only so big. There's only so many people to teach. We're just at that point. So I hate saying that. I hate every time somebody's interested in us and I have to tell them that we're just not the one because we're full. We had to have, back in the spring when we did open up registration for new members, I had to have a waiting list just to see, okay, I've already got these certain number of families that are interested. Are they going to, if they're not going to follow through and actually register, then that leaves a spot open for you. And we were able to welcome, I think, 15 new families in, which took us up to about 60 or 61, which doesn't sound like a lot, but in reality, it means about 150 kids. And so you're trying finding a place to feed 150 children every Monday. It's just not that easy. So we're extremely thankful for Mount Airy for our meeting facility. There just are limitations, and so we just work within those limitations. But I don't say that to be discouraging. I say it to be encouraging that there are still so many other choices out there, and if there's just not that perfect one for you, well, maybe it's your time. Maybe it's your time to rise to the occasion and form a core group and start something new, because you know what? The homeschool world is big enough for all of us. I see no competition within the homeschool, or I don't see competition as being necessary within the homeschool community, because it's just, the world's big enough for all of us. And we're better off for having more choices and more opportunities for our families. So anyway, let me look real quick. I think that's it. Like I said, this is kind of an outline of what I've talked about, just in website form. I'll be glad to share my notes with you if this was too fast or not very clear, by email, if you want to email me at cheegazette@gmail.com, cheegazette@gmail.com. I'll share my notes with you. And I'll be glad, as a leader within the co-op world, to offer advice or instruction, wisdom, whatever it's called, to help you get started either in your personal homeschooling or in forming a group or whatever it is that you think I may be able to help you with. But I appreciate the opportunity to speak with you, and I hope that things go well with you in your future endeavors. And one more thing, sorry. This is an example. I did bring our most current yearbook, just so you can flip through and see what we do and look at the yearbook and things like that, just to have an idea, because when I started 5 years ago, I didn't know the difference in any of these. I didn't know that some groups centered on curriculum, and some groups only did field trips, and some groups had yearbooks, and maybe some groups didn't, and things like that. So that just gives you a snapshot of ours, but there are lots of good choices out there, and I hope you are able to find the good fit for you. Thank you.
Hello, I'm Michelle Wiles, and I was a part of Christy Brooks' group there. My son had his own business, if you remember that, Christy. He had a pencil business, and he would charge, what was it, a penny a pencil to sharpen it, and then 10 cents to buy the pencil. So then he started selling candy and all kinds of things. So he had a great experience at Chi. And it's a great group, so if you can get in there, get on that waiting list with Christy. I'm here to talk a little bit about curriculum. This is my mess up here. And I am the most non-traditional homeschooler probably you'll ever meet. I do not use textbooks. Now, I have 6 kids. My oldest is 25. I started homeschooling when she was, 3, 4, kind of unschooling. But 94 was when I really started, and it was not popular. My family was totally 100% against me and thought I was nuts. And thought my kids were going to grow up very uneducated. Not true. I have 3 that have graduated. One went to the University of Michigan, which is where I'm from originally, if you can't tell. And she is now a nanny and a nurse for a family in Canada. My second daughter is going to school for computer engineering and has half of her school paid for by scholarships. The older one, to backtrack, 100% scholarships. So don't let anybody tell you the homeschooled kids can't get scholarships. My third daughter graduated 1 year early, and she is not college bound, which is fine. Not everybody needs to go to college. Some people want to go to trade school. She's going to be a cosmetologist. The next daughter I have, she's heading into 10th grade, and she is going to be starting college in 11th grade, which is she can earn dual credits through college. so she can have an associate's degree possibly by the time she graduates. So my point is that you don't have to use textbooks, and you don't have to, if you haven't seen this paper, some of them are blue, some are white. Traditional, I did start out with that because that's all I knew. And as Gail probably remembers, we did not have the options we have today. So with the traditional, I had gone to the libraries and gotten old books or garage sales, old textbooks, and that's what we used at that time. But as I kept learning and studying and wondering, why was I really homeschooling? I wasn't the most religious person at that time. Not that I was not a good person or something, but I thought, why was I homeschooling? And what it was about was for freedom. The freedom to teach your children what you want them to learn. What is good? What are your values? What kind of history do you want them to know? So from there, I started studying and learning what could I do about this, because I was so programmed here from public school thinking that I didn't see outside of that box. And so that's where I'm at today. It is the only one I really never tried was classical. I thought it was way too hard, to be honest. Unschooling, I would recommend that for your preschool age kids. I think that people put way too much pressure on little kids when they're 3 to 5 years old, when they can go out and they can learn so many things that we take advantage of, we don't even think about. I remember taking my kids and going to the grocery store when they were really little and teaching them budgeting, teaching them how much things cost, teaching them their numbers by looking at price tags, teaching them the value of money, just even when they're little like that. And as they grew older, they grew into more learning about budgeting. The one that I fell in love with was the unit studies, if you look on that page, and most of all, Charlotte Mason. And up here, I have some examples of some of that style of learning. And what I'm going to read right from the paper here because it's worded so well. Charlotte was a British educator in the late 1800s, and what I liked about her best was she emphasized respecting each child as a person and giving them a broad education. I have 4 daughters and 2 sons. Each one of them are all different. They all learn different. And one curriculum does not fit all the kids. So when I read her book here, this one, The Philosophy, and also her original set, which I don't have here, it's packed away somewhere, I learned that her approach works with the way children naturally learn. I remember when we would go and people would say, well, that's not schooling, what I'm about to tell you. We would pack up our wagon, I had little kids, and we would pack our lunch, and they would learn how to cook, how to pack, how to put it in the wagon so it would all fit. They learned, you had to stay on the sidewalk, safety. When they really don't think about all the things you're really teaching your kids when you go to the park. And so we would sit there and we would read books out loud. And we would talk about life skills all day. Play, run. We had gym class. We're running. So my point is that homeschooling does not have to look like public school. It can be whatever you want it to look like. All you have to do is include whatever they're calling the subjects are, those 5 main subjects. One of the things I like best is this book here, Spelling Wisdom. Inside this book, and this goes by different levels, inside here are dictation sentences. So if you were to open up to one of these, it would say by Benjamin Franklin, early to bed, early to rise, makes a man healthy, wealthy, and wise. When you think about that, think about all the words that are in that sentence. Think about the punctuation, the capitals, who wrote it. And you could make history, spelling, writing, grammar. I mean, it goes on and on and on with that one sentence. All those subjects are covered. Benjamin Franklin was a scientist. You can study science. So, the other thing I wanted to point out too was the Prairie Primer. This here, this is the unit studies. If you look in here, we did this and we studied all 9 Little House on the Prairie books in 1 year. And this included every subject, this one book, with the 9 Little House on the Prairie set. Don't think they're not for boys either, because there's lots of boy stuff to do in there. Everything except for math. That's it. That's all we needed. You had history, everything. What I mostly want to do is answer questions. So I don't know when we're starting the question and answer, but I've got these books out here. I'm going to be giving some of those away up here. Anybody who's interested in the philosophy of Charlotte Mason. We've got 2 more philosophies here. 2 more. And then I've got here Charlotte Mason Education, a Homeschooling How-To Manual. All right. The other thing too is I brought over here, I don't want to forget these either, because I think phonics is very important in reading. We have a set of readers up here just to take a look at. There's all kinds of different ones you can get, but these here, I've used them for 21 years. Every one of my kids have used those books there. They're all excellent spellers and readers and all that. So I want you to come up and take a look at those. And then the last thing I want to talk about is this catalog here. It's called the Alpha Omega, if anybody hasn't picked one of those up. For children that are older, that go to work, like my daughter Lainey, she's just turned 15. She works about 20 hours a week and then does her school. She doesn't want me talking to her about school all day and sitting with her doing this. So what we decided to do was use an online Christian, that happens to be Christian, curriculum that will give her all kinds of electives, credits, and all that. It's about $400 a year. It checks 85% of the work, 15% the parent has to check. All the reports that you could ever imagine needing for homeschool accountability can be printed out in there. So with that, I think I'm done, other than Beautiful Feet. This is another curriculum that is a unit study. It's a lot of history, and it tells you books that you get at the library to learn all the different types of time periods. So with that, I think I'm done.
Hi, my name's Thomas Beach. I'm the district executive for the Boy Scouts of America. I would like to first do a shout out real quick. Mrs. Brooks, who's Mrs. Brooks, her husband and I served together. I did not know she would be here tonight, but her husband and I served together at 3rd Ranger Battalion down Fort Benning, and thank you for his service. And her husband's also one of our Boy Scout Scout Masters here in the area as well. Well, the world is full of guys and not enough men. And that's, I think, in a nutshell, what we try to do with the Boy Scouts is we try to produce men. If you do have a daughter and she's 14 years old, there is opportunities for a scouting experience. But if you have a son that is ages from 7 to 18, there is opportunity for scouting. So we try to implement some traits in our boys throughout our program. And I want to make sure I don't go over 5 minutes because I said short and sweet. And let me get my calendar here. A few of these traits: trustworthy, loyal, helpful, friendly, courteous, kind, obedient, cheerful, thrifty, brave, clean, and reverent. Through the program, this is what we try to instill in our boys in the community. They have a community impact. They do things that camping, canoeing and rappelling and whatever. There's hundreds and hundreds of things, but they try to through the program instill these traits into our boys. One of my Cub Masters is actually in the back here, Mr. Doug Poor, for the boys that are ages 7 through 10, and here locally. So if you're looking to get your boy interacting with other boys, to kind of give them a little backbone, if you want, I guess you can say, the scouting program is an excellent program. Now, I want to just really touch on a couple safety issues. The first one is our leaders do go through a background check. The second thing is that the Boy Scouts have a unit that's associated with a church. The church decides who the leaders are. They sign off on those leaders. So if the church says, we want this person to be a leader, we don't want this person to be a leader, that's on the church, not on the Boy Scouts. I know that the media likes sensational headlines, but this institution has been around for 109 years, and we do what we always do. And it does not matter if I had a married couple who are leaders in my unit, and they're married, no PDA, that's just a no-no. So either it's, straight or the other way. Kids, I know you're here. That's just a no-no. If it becomes a distraction, we ask those people to leave. So we don't allow distractions. We're about scouting. And so I know that a lot of you might have questions about that, and I wanted to be able to answer those questions, but we do the same thing what we've done for 109 years, and that would be my time. Our website is beascout.org. If you're interested in joining the Scouts here, it's a great opportunity to build some lifelong memories, to instill some good traits in your children. My name is Thomas Beach, and thank you.
We're going to open the floor for some questioning. Does anyone have a question that you would like to ask one of our speakers?
Special needs, is there anything to cover special needs children?
You want to take that? All right. You want to take it again? I've got this set, right? Say it again.
Special needs, anything to cover special needs children, like Down syndrome?
Special needs is definitely a growing issue among homeschoolers, primarily because children with special needs are not being cared for in public schools the way they need to be cared for. So families are bringing them home to homeschool them, and they are finding it's much more difficult than they thought it was going to be. So they are reaching out. So as a state organization, we
I think your mic is on. You got a green light on?
It's got
green light is on.
Yeah.
As a state organization, we helped sponsor our first special needs conference this past spring. We are planning on doing a second one this upcoming spring. I can't pull the date, I'm sorry, but it'll be on our website. And it's, we do have at least 3, and we're working on developing 2 more support groups across the state that are geared specifically to special needs children. And so again, that's on the website. And these are, okay, the website is www.schea.net. And there is one right here in the upstate, and then there's one in Columbia, and we're working one in the Fort Mill area, and we're trying to get another one started down on the coast. But these are specifically, now these are support groups. These are not third option groups, but they are specifically for special needs families.
I was wondering, there are many people out here that have special skills, but not skills that cover the wide spectrum to which we have to teach our children. Is there within these co-ops, is there you mentioned, I heard a mention of people that actually charge for certain areas that you need to get help, okay? But is there a barter system within the co-op system where some of us that have abilities or expertises can fit into these co-ops?
Right now, I currently teach in a co-op that does exactly what you're talking about. Last year I did language arts, because there are a lot of parents who do not like grammar or literature. So I did that. I personally hate math, so my kids can go there and get math. So there's the co-ops, a lot of them do that. I'm not sure if yours does. Kind of. Yeah, we have high school classes that actually, they do work at home, and their parents are the literal persons over the students, but they will go and get lessons for that week in the classroom with the other high school kids, and then they're to go home and do their work. Does that answer? Okay, what else?
My recommendation is find a co-op in your area. Okay. My husband and I helped to start Easley Home Educators, and I was president of that organization until I retired in 2005. One of the things we did, we had fathers who came in who taught. For instance, one session, we did auto mechanics. And he came in, and for an hour every Monday, he taught our kids auto mechanics. We had another one who did, we called it animal husbandry. Every week he brought in a different animal, and we talked to the kids about, it got a little dangerous at some point, yes. I saw, there's a lot of potential for hazards. But yeah, and so he would bring in a different animal. So my recommendation is find a co-op near you, and then call the director and offer your services. Say, this is what I can do. Can you use me in your co-op? And most all of them will jump at that opportunity.
Thank you.
Yes.
Say something right quick about that.
Yes.
I'm part of a homeschool accountability group in Liberty, and I do the weekly science lesson on Thursdays. And I pretty much trade out the 2 of the people for sewing. They do some sewing work for me, and I do, and other friendly things, like you're talking about, just bartering. They consider my time worth $20 an hour. So she presses my clothes sometimes for me. She does sewing for me.
I don't want money. What I want is a service or a service.
Well, that's what I'm saying. Like she values my time at $20 an hour.
Okay.
My Thursday, I do it every Thursday during the school year, and I do the science lesson. We've made an aluminum sculpture out of an anthill. We've done robotics. We've done, like she mentioned breadboards. We've made a small computer before. So that's another thing. I was just trying to tell you that there are people like that, and I'm willing to do that because they're part of my community. So I'm not a part of any group or anything like that. They just come to me to do those lessons, and I'm perfectly willing to do that, and they get full credit for that. So that's an answer too.
Well, that is my major concern, is that there's so much to be taught and learned out there, and we have expertises. And my thought process in coming here tonight is that this whole co-op thing really interests me, because in my brain, it means that it's a group of people that all have expertises that share and give their kids what they need.
Did you have a question, young man?
How could I help my parents in the homeschooling thing with how could I help them and with them to get it done quicker and for them to help teach me?
That's a great question. Yes, it is. That's a very good question.
Who wants to take that one? You want to take it?
Okay. That's an excellent question. Okay, the best thing that you can do for them is cooperate with them. So when your mom says it's time to start homeschooling, say, yes ma'am, I'm ready to go. And then do your best at your work, and that will make her day so much easier, and she will be so much more willing to homeschool you the rest of your life. One of my sons was pretty sure that he didn't want to be homeschooled, and so we put him in a private school for 1 semester with the deal that if he made it through, then we would go ahead and let him stay. And by the time he was done with that 1 semester, he said, "Can you homeschool me through college?" So yeah, you get excited about it and you cooperate with her. That's the best thing that you can do for her.
Question? You want to? Okay. I got something for to say. I'll tell you in a minute.
Hi, I homeschooled my son in the state of Washington, and we were able there to take advantage of taking some of the classes at the actual public school. Is that available in South Carolina?
Okay, no, unfortunately it is not. It was a long, hard fight, but a couple of years ago we won the right to, they call it equal access. And it allows our kids to go into school for sports and extracurricular activities. So they can do band, they can do, we got junior ROTC approved by the Attorney General. So those kind of extracurricular, yes, but
After school activities.
correct, but not in class. No, the only place where you can do that is some of the private schools will allow you to do that, but public school will not.
That's a shame, because we need access.
All right, how do you teach the kids algebra?
They're not going to need it. Just kidding.
I get a tutor. If you're not good at it, you go and get a tutor. But there are ones online. Yep, you can get them online. You can get them through, like I have a tutor that lives 2 miles from my house that my daughter goes to. So.
Hi, my name is Amy, and we have 2 questions. The first one is, we have a son, and my husband does not have a GED, but I have a high school diploma. Is he allowed to teach, even though I have a high school diploma? And then the second question is, I know you were talking about the different options and being legal, How do you go about doing that if you're not in a co-op?
The law just says it's the parent or legal guardian who has to have a minimum of a GED. So if you're teaching, you've got the high school diploma, that's all that you need.
So he can still teach as long as I have my
Correct, correct. Yeah, there you go. Okay. The other thing is, and I'll tell you again, if you go online to skia.net, we will list all of the accountability groups with links to their particular website. Tells you what they want, what they expect of you, and what you can expect of them. Some of the groups are local, some of them are restricted, some of them are statewide, but you go to any one of those third option groups and sign up with them.
Hi, this goes back to the question about the sports and activities. I mean, she's my middle schooler. She'll be going to 7th grade. We're going to be taking her out of middle school for this opportunity. She is interested in tons of sports. How do you go about that? I mean, if we're taking her, I'm taking her out of the middle school, but she still wants to try out for, let's say, volleyball or basketball, the extracurricular activities. How do I get her into that, per se, partnership with the school? Is that something that I would do, or, how do I work that out? Just sign her up? Because it's after school. They have all the, she knows about it because it's in the hallway, for instance.
Okay, you've got two options. Actually, because it took us so long to get equal access, homeschoolers have begun developing their own sports leagues. And so you can get involved, okay, and because I'm local, I will tell you, Easley Home Educators Athletics Department, and they do girls basketball and volleyball and boys basketball and soccer. At one point, they were doing cross country. I'm not sure that they do. There's football. So yes, they do all of that. If they do not have a program that you're involved in, you want to do fencing or swimming or whatever, you go to the local school and talk with the guidance counselor there and say, I've got a homeschooler and I would like to be involved in this sports program. There are a couple of hoops that you have to jump through, but they're not severe. And so, that's the way you go with it.
Are you going to be lobbying for more opportunities for homeschoolers to partner with the school districts?
Why would we need to do that?
Okay.
We're looking always for somebody, I'm sorry.
It's divided.
I understand that, but I'm saying that is what you do from my understanding.
Okay. Because we are a nonprofit, we cannot lobby for something. And even equal access was a divided issue within the homeschool community for just this reason. Is because there are families who said, we pay taxes, we want this option. And then there are other families who said, we pulled our kids out because we didn't want that influence, and so no, we don't need it. Equal access. And so even within the homeschool community, this is a divided issue. So what we did as a state organization was we put out the information. We said, here's the bill, this is what's happening to it. If you want it, call your legislators and let them know. If you don't want it, call your legislators and let them know. So that's what we do.
All right, next question.
I have a 9-year-old that went to public school, 1st, 2nd, and 3rd grade, and she's quirky, but she's very social. I'm not social, and I'm worried. I'm wanting to homeschool her, and I'm worried about, okay, I'm going to be the teacher, and I'm going to have to supply social for her also. Is that as easy as just joining a group? Is that what helps that whole social thing?
It is. It is. It's just finding a group that fits you well. I know I keep saying
I mean, it's
that.
going to be enough of a culture shock just going into being the teacher
It
and
is.
having her at home.
I'm not going to lie. Yes.
Uh-huh. It is. You're telling me. Yes.
You're going to have really big eyes and really hard days. But just dig around on the internet, talk to people, look around for.
Is it expensive to be social?
It's really not. We're blessed in this area. Chi in particular, our member registration fee is $20 a year. And then however many classes you take. You know, you have a little class fee associated with those. I don't think EHE in this area is much more than that. Like the field trips only groups, there's no fee usually associated with even be a part of that. That's, you join a Facebook group, and so you see the information and you say, we're going to that. And so you just get involved. You know, church also feels that need if that's something that you're involved with a lot, church and youth groups and things like that. But really, it's just finding the group of people who you feel like you fit in well with and will enjoy. I know you're not the social one, but that you can tolerate being around, and she will enjoy being around. And maybe, I don't know. I would almost encourage first-year homeschoolers, just from my personal experience, maybe start out slow. Maybe do a field trips only group the first year.
Right.
And then start looking into the classes and the weekly type things.
I was going to
and
do
all that.
piano, karate, and a field trip group.
Right.
And hopefully that would
See,
help.
you're good.
Am I
You're
doing
good.
okay?
Yeah.
Okay,
You're
the other
covering
thing I
all
wanted to
bases.
ask, you people with more than one kid, I've only got one, and she's like 3. But how do you have mother time when you need a break? How do you get that?
You find another mother, and you swap off times. I'll keep your kids this afternoon, and you will give me 2 hours tomorrow by myself. Yep.
And your husband, if he's around, you play on his sympathies.
And when they're at karate, you leave.
I was late, but, so you may have went over this. If you did, just say yes, and I'll get you afterwards, and you can answer it. But when I was looking at the co-ops earlier, I noticed that it wasn't a certain curriculum we had to go by to be in a co-op, right? Most
right.
co-ops. So how do I know what you're teaching to be able to go? Does that make any sense? Like if I'm on this
Completely.
math,
Right.
that's what I'm confused about.
From experience, I can really only speak about Chi in particular, but I think that the other ones that are like Chi that are not curriculum-based are similar in that we're not teaching Singapore math. We're teaching math facts. You know, we're memorizing the state capitals. We're teaching world geography. It's that type of supplemental. It's not the core of the subject. It's the extras. You know what I'm saying? No.
Supplement and enrichment. I don't mean that. I mean, that's a complete waste of time. No, I'm just saying, like, I would think it would be more, I was hoping it'd be more supplemental than,
And some of them are. I'm just
yeah, that's
the one that
The co-op that I teach at, the high school level, we're using a certain curriculum. Like this year, for example, I'm using Monarch, which is online, for government econ. All the high school students in my class will have that curriculum. But when they come to class, we'll be going over what they learned that week, and I'll have special speakers in there to supplement what they've learned. Now, the younger kids, my younger one, he's in 2nd grade. They do not have, Michelle, go home and buy this textbook, because, you know, the 2nd graders are going to use this textbook. They're basically doing science experiments or art or cooking.
that does make sense. I guess especially if you do the extracurricular.
Right, and some co-ops for high school, they don't use textbooks either. They'll go in there for drama. It's just a drama or an art class.
That makes sense. I'm thinking more of, like you said, like teaching history and then going and do something.
Right, so you
already
have to,
know or whatever.
you'll find the right co-op that you're looking for, and sometimes you'll have to, you know, sometimes it's 2. You know, one kid's, you know, this way or that way.
Sorry, I didn't mean that. I just meant, you understand what
Yeah.
I'm like, you know.
All right, we have a question. We have a question from an online viewer.
What is being done at the local level and state level in regards to backpacking funds, and are any legislators out there that support it I would like for Junior Smith to answer some part of this, as I think the Conservatives of the Upstate is planning another seminar where we'll be talking about this specific thing.
I think that, can you hear me? Can you hear me now? Okay. I think that when you talk about backpacking, Governor Sanford wanted that done 4 or 5 years ago. And we went down to Columbia and talked to him, and he was very much for it. And our senator here in Pickens County was the deciding vote against it. Unfortunately, we feel like that it's important that this is one of the options that the parents have. If you have the money, you have the power. And if you don't have the money, you have no power. So what we intend to do is go to Columbia and talk to people like Lee Bright and people of that nature to try to get them to reinvigorate backpacking, which would mean that everybody gets the money for their child. Now, what would happen, I mean, you don't get the money, you get a voucher for your child. And then that way, your education would be paid for just like the public schools are paid for, because you pay taxes just like they do. And we need to have control of the money. If you don't have control of the money, you've got control of nothing except your child. So just
So far.
Do what?
So far.
So far. Anyway, I feel like that it would be a very good thing for us to politically get after Columbia to give us the money. And if you get the money, you will have control. As long as the public schools have all the money, you don't have control of it really. You don't have control. And I just feel like that unless we get the money to each individual child, which they are due, and it's not anything but right that your child have just as much of an opportunity as the other child without putting a burden on the family. Thank you.
I don't want things to be, I don't want to be overbearing as the parent that's going to be doing this, but I also want, I feel like there's a need to put my foot on my son, and I want to know, how do I go about not doing it too much and making it a bad experience, whereas I want it to be a good experience, but I want him to catch back up and move ahead.
Okay, I'm not going to claim to have all the answers here, but I have 4 daughters and 2 sons, and they are all different, and boys and girls are different. And my suggestion is find the things that he is interested in, and he has to make a bargain with you that when you teaching him something that he doesn't necessarily want to know, then that he's got to do what you're telling him. So you're kind of going back and forth where he's getting what he wants to learn, and what's your name again? Reed, and you have to listen to Daddy and do what he says to do, and he's going to let you pick things that you want to do.
Okay, we're going to wrap it up right now. If your question did not get asked, I got one more? Okay.
When considering an accountability group or support group, do you have to physically meet, or can you meet by Skype, chat room, or email?
Okay, your support group, you will need to physically meet because you are going to be involved in that support group. So you're going to be there, you're going to be actively involved. The accountability group differs. Some of them do require that you are actually there and showing your work. Others are not, and that's why it's really important that you get to know your accountability group and what they expect of you and what you can expect of them. And that's why, again, I say don't just grab a name, don't take the first name off the list. Go through, and homeschooling is a commitment right from day one. And so when you're trying to choose your accountability group, here's your first assignment. Look at what they require, look at what they expect, and see where you fit. Some of them, for instance, homeward education, which is in the low country, is statewide. And so all of that is done online. Sending in your records and all of the rest of it is done online. Then there are others like Upstate Co-op, no, OCTOG, Oconee County Third Option Group. And they require you to show up twice a year with your paperwork and with your lesson plans to show them what you have done, so they are sure that you're actually being accountable for what you're doing. So it depends on the third option, what they expect of you. Get to know them and find out which one fits in with your philosophy and your criteria and your time.
Okay, we're going to wrap it up. If you have a question, there are some large index cards back there in a little basket. If you will write your question and put your email address or your telephone number, either one, we will get your question answered by our speakers. But we want to go ahead and wrap this up. Would you please give everyone a round of applause for our speakers tonight? Thank you so much for coming.